Hollywood's golden age is often remembered as a time of glamour, elegance, and larger-than-life stars whose talent lit up the silver screen. But behind the glitz and glitter, not everything was as it seemed. Ron Howard, one of the most respected figures in Hollywood, has revealed something shocking. A list of actors from that era whose behavior was far darker than anyone could have imagined. These were not just temperamental divas or eccentric personalities. These were individuals whose actions, decisions, and influence left a trail of fear, manipulation, and even cruelty in the shadows of the limelight. For decades, fans have romanticized the golden age, idolizing stars for their charm, talent, and screen presence. But Ron Howard's revelations peel back the curtain, exposing a side of Hollywood rarely discussed in public. The actors he names were brilliant performers, yes, but brilliance often came hand in hand with darker impulses, ambition unchecked by conscience, rivalries that turned toxic, and behaviors that shocked even their closest colleagues. It is a side of cinema history that has been hidden beneath layers of myth, media spin, and nostalgia. What makes this list truly compelling is not just the actors themselves, but the stories behind them. From terrifying on-set moments to manipulation of co-stars and crew, these six figures exemplified how power, fame, and ego can twist talent into something dangerous. For Ron Howard, revealing these names is not an act of scandal-mongering. It is a candid acknowledgement of the complex, often troubling reality that existed behind the silver screen. And as the list unfolds, you'll see how Hollywood's iconic past was shaped not only by artistry but by darkness, deceit, and, in some cases, outright evil. Hollywood's golden age was a world of striking contrasts. On the surface, there was elegance, glamour, and the dizzying allure of the silver screen. Stars walked the red carpet with impeccable style, delivered performances that have endured for generations, and created a culture that the world admired. But beneath the shimmering lights, the studio system wielded control over every aspect of an actor's life, and the pressure to maintain perfection often exposed darker sides of human nature. Ron Howard's revelations about six of the most evil actors from that era shed light on a reality that fans rarely imagine: the darker impulses, manipulations, and moral failings that hid behind the charm of Hollywood's brightest stars. These actors were more than just temperamental or demanding. They were dangerous, in ways that could affect both careers and lives. Ron Howard, having worked with generations of actors, has a perspective few others possess. He knows that talent alone does not define a person. On the sets of Hollywood's golden age, the combination of intense competition, immense fame, and unchecked egos created a breeding ground for behaviors that ranged from cruel pranks to outright intimidation. Many colleagues were left fearful of crossing certain stars, knowing that a single misstep could result in public humiliation or career sabotage. Howard's insight into this era reveals that brilliance often came hand in hand with a willingness to harm others to protect status, reputation, or control. It's hard to reconcile the polished images we see in vintage photographs with the accounts of manipulation, jealousy, and vindictiveness described by those who witnessed it firsthand. Some actors used their influence to control the careers of others, ensuring they remained at the top while suppressing rivals. Others were known for terrifying on-set behavior, erupting in anger, bullying co-stars, or creating atmospheres of fear to assert dominance. The stories are as shocking as they are illuminating, revealing that Hollywood's glimmering surface was often a mask for ruthless ambition. What makes Howard's list particularly striking is the inclusion of names that, even today, are celebrated for their talent. These were actors whose faces remain iconic, whose performances are studied, and whose legacies in film history are undeniable. And yet, beyond the cameras, these individuals exhibited behavior that would be considered unacceptable, even malicious, in any other context. For Howard, acknowledging their darker sides does not diminish their artistry. It provides a more complete understanding of the complexity of human behavior in a world obsessed with fame and image. As we begin to uncover the first of these six actors, it becomes clear that Hollywood's golden age was a stage not only for legendary performances, but also for moral and ethical battles fought behind closed doors. Ambition, when combined with the intoxicating power of celebrity, created a dangerous environment where even the brightest stars could cast the darkest shadows. These stories, as revealed by Howard, challenge our nostalgia for the era, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable reality that history often hides the flaws, fears, and cruelties that shaped it. The first actor on Ron Howard's list is someone whose public persona was almost the perfect facade, charming, witty, and seemingly affable. To fans, he embodied everything glamorous about Hollywood's golden age, the type of star whose smile could light up a room and whose voice captivated audiences worldwide. Yet behind the scenes, the stories told by colleagues paint a vastly different picture. According to Howard, this actor wielded his influence with calculated precision, manipulating casting decisions, intimidating co-stars, and creating tension on set that went far beyond ordinary rivalries. The talent was undeniable, but so was the darkness that lingered beneath the glittering surface. Hollywood's golden age demanded a level of perfection that often magnified human flaws. For some stars, the constant scrutiny and high expectations became fuel for cruelty. They learned that fear could be just as effective as talent in securing compliance and admiration. Co-stars recount stories of public humiliation used as punishment, behind-the-scenes sabotage to ensure dominance, and whispered threats that left even veteran actors wary of crossing certain individuals. In Howard's view, these 6 actors didn't simply possess strong personalities. They used the environment of the industry to justify actions that would be considered morally reprehensible elsewhere. Their reputations protected them, allowing them to operate with impunity, often at the expense of those around them. The second figure on the list is infamous for a volatility that could erupt without warning. While audiences adored his performances and critics praised his skill, those who worked with him recall moments of terror. Lights were smashed, arguments escalated to shouting matches, and entire production crews were left walking on eggshells. Howard emphasizes that these behaviors were not mere eccentricities, they were manipulative tools. This actor understood the power of fear and used it to maintain control, creating an environment where no one dared question him. It is this duality, charming on screen, ruthless off, that makes his story emblematic of the darker side of fame. Beyond individual incidents, what emerges from Howard's recounting is a pattern. The golden age of Hollywood, for all its glamour, was also a world in which power was absolute and accountability often non-existent. Studios frequently turned a blind eye to destructive behavior as long as box office numbers remained high. Ambition and ego, when coupled with adoration and celebrity, created fertile ground for manipulation. These 6 actors, Howard suggests, were not simply products of their time. They actively exploited the system to elevate themselves, sometimes at the cost of others' careers, mental health, or even safety. The third actor Howard mentions demonstrates another dimension of this darkness: cold, calculated ambition. Unlike the volatile star who relied on fear, this individual quietly maneuvered behind the scenes, undermining colleagues, influencing studio executives, and shaping casting outcomes in ways that served personal gain. Talent alone was never enough. Howard highlights that the industry rewarded those who understood the politics of power, who could manipulate perception while maintaining the polished facade audiences adored. In this sense, evil was subtle but no less impactful, leaving long-lasting scars on the people and productions caught in the crossfire. As we explore these first 3 actors, the contrast between public admiration and private terror becomes unmistakable. Howard's revelations force us to reconsider the heroes of cinema's golden age, acknowledging that brilliance on screen often masked troubling and even destructive behavior off-screen. And while these actors created unforgettable performances that continue to inspire, the darker side of their personas reminds us that history, especially Hollywood history, is rarely as simple as it seems. The fourth actor on Ron Howard's list demonstrates a different, more insidious type of cruelty, one built on manipulation and charm rather than outright intimidation. To the public, this star was celebrated for elegance, wit, and sophistication. On screen, he or she embodied sophistication and charisma, But behind closed doors, colleagues recall a careful orchestration of influence that often left co-stars powerless. Howard points out that this actor understood the psychology of Hollywood, using flattery, secrecy, and subtle threats to bend situations to their advantage. It wasn't always loud or violent, it was strategic, cold, and calculated. The fear this behavior inspired often went unnoticed by outsiders because it was wrapped in a veneer of charm, the kind of charm that made it easy for others to dismiss their misconduct. The fifth actor reveals yet another side of darkness: relentless obsession with control. Howard explains that some actors, while outwardly professional, exerted extraordinary pressure over every detail of a production. Scripts, sets, costumes, and even the performances of co-stars could become battlegrounds, with this actor insisting on absolute dominance. While ambition is often celebrated in Hollywood, unchecked obsession can create an environment where creativity and collaboration are stifled. According to Howard, the impact on those who worked with this actor was profound. People learned to anticipate anger, curtail personal opinions, and constantly second-guess themselves, simply to avoid confrontation. This form of evil was subtle yet devastating, leaving psychological scars that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. Perhaps the most shocking revelation comes with the sixth actor, whose actions blurred the lines between cruelty and outright malice. Howard recalls that this individual's behavior could turn chaotic, putting not only careers but lives at risk. Dangerous pranks, calculated betrayals, and moments of intense emotional abuse became a hallmark of their reputation. While the star delivered performances that audiences adored, those who worked closest to them describe a climate of fear and unpredictability. What makes this particularly disturbing is that the industry often excused such behavior, prioritizing talent and profit over safety and ethics. This actor exemplifies the extreme end of the spectrum, reminding us that Hollywood's golden age, for all its glamour, could also be a perilous world where brilliance and malevolence coexisted. Howard emphasizes that the common thread between these six actors is not simply fame or eccentricity. It is the conscious use of power to dominate, intimidate, or manipulate others. The studio system, designed to protect profits, often enabled these behaviors. Legends were untouchable, and their influence extended across sets, contracts, and careers. Howard's perspective provides a rare insider's view, showing that while we celebrate their art, we must also confront the darker realities of the environment in which they thrived. By the time we examine these six actors collectively, a pattern emerges. Hollywood's golden age was more than glitz and glamour. It was a complex ecosystem where ambition, ego, and unchecked power could easily morph into cruelty. These actors, Howard reveals, are remembered both for their extraordinary talent and their disturbing ability to manipulate, intimidate, and control. Their legacy is a cautionary tale, reminding us that even in the most celebrated eras of entertainment, darkness often hides in plain sight, behind the smiles and applause of adoring audiences. The revelations about these six actors, as shared by Ron Howard, offer more than just shocking gossip. They provide insight into the intricate dynamics of Hollywood's golden age. While the public adored their on-screen personas, behind the cameras, the stakes were often far higher and far darker. Howard's insider perspective reveals that talent and artistry, while awe-inspiring, could coexist with manipulation, cruelty, and moral compromise. These actors' behavior was not incidental. It was a deliberate, calculated use of power to control outcomes, protect their status, and sometimes even harm others. This duality of brilliance and malevolence is what makes their stories so compelling and, at times, deeply unsettling. For many who worked with these stars, the experience was fraught with tension and fear. Productions were shaped not only by creative vision, but by the whims and demands of individuals who understood the extent of their influence. Co-stars, directors, and crew often had little recourse when confronted with unpredictable or destructive behavior. The studio system, which theoretically existed to maintain order and professionalism, frequently prioritized box office success over accountability, effectively enabling the very actions that created fear and resentment on set. Howard's reflections underscore how the combination of unchecked power and public adoration created a culture where even the brightest talent could act without consequence. Yet, it's important to note that Howard's recounting is not meant to diminish the artistry of these actors. Their performances remain legendary, shaping the history of cinema and inspiring countless artists and audiences. What it does, however, is provide a fuller, more nuanced understanding of the people behind the performances. Hollywood's golden age was not merely a time of elegance and glamour. It was also a world where ambition, ego, and influence could lead to ethically questionable and sometimes outright harmful behavior. Recognizing this complexity does not erase their contributions, it contextualizes them, reminding us that human beings are rarely one-dimensional, even when immortalized on film. The lessons from these stories extend beyond Hollywood itself. They are cautionary tales about power, ambition, and the consequences of unchecked behavior. They remind us that talent alone does not guarantee moral integrity, and that environments that reward achievement without accountability can foster destructive tendencies. Howard's revelations invite reflection not just on the golden age of cinema, but on how similar dynamics may exist in industries today, emphasizing the importance of ethical leadership, accountability, and awareness of the human impact behind the work we admire. Ultimately, the story of these 6 actors is a testament to the complex interplay between genius and darkness. Their legacy is a paradox, performances that continue to captivate audiences for generations, juxtaposed with personal behaviors that instilled fear and discomfort in those around them. Through Ron Howard's insights, we gain a rare opportunity to understand both sides of that paradox, appreciating the brilliance while acknowledging the shadows. Hollywood's golden age may be remembered for its glamour, but its history is richer, more intricate, and at times far darker than the silver screen alone would suggest. In the end, Howard's revelations encourage us to look beyond the surface, reminding us that fame, power, and artistry can coexist with profound flaws, and that understanding these truths makes the stories of cinema all the more compelling.